Time.
Showtime should be. I think it is. It's Monday, so it must be showtime.
Let me just quickly fix this a little bit.
Hello. You are zoomed in, Cobus. Too much for people to handle on a Monday morning. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday's edition of Bean Streaming. I hope you are all doing well. I hope you all have a good Monday. It's 11 a.m. our local times, so and it's a I wouldn't call it an early Monday, but it is relatively early. Welcome to Bean Streaming, a show where my bald buddy and I talk about technology, AWS, and cloud, and in general, nerdy things. Today's topic, or today's most important topic, is going to be containers on AWS. So we're going to be discussing containers. How
Mm.
can you run containers? What are containers? Are they important? Are they not? Are containers virtual machines? I'm going to be leveraging on on the experience of my friend Kobus here to kind of ask more questions on containers, and I'm going to speak about
Ooh,
my own things. But before we start that, welcome to the show. This show happens every Monday and every Friday, where Kobus and I, as I said, talk about tech, cloud, and things in general. We sometimes do code, we sometimes just talk. So if you're interested, please do smash the subscribe and follow button, whatever it is you do on Twitch or YouTube or wherever you are watching this. I also need to put in this so we are kind of better rendered. Oh, hey, like this. No, this.
oh,
Hey,
brilliant.
there we
There we
go.
go. Yes,
Running
I
note.
did
So
spend time
you
on
you
that.
can you can check out our links down below so you can follow us and whatnot. Um, cool. So, um, Kubus, how are you?
I am well. I finally have blinds reinstalled. It was a bit of a scramble now to get it done in time because they need special brackets and those got lost at some point. So that was fun. But they finished at 10 minutes to. So now I can control
Okay.
my light a bit better.
So no light for you, or no sun for you.
No, because remember, we're heading into summer. So it's definitely going to be a lot brighter than before.
Yeah. Hey, we have some first comment here from Lilium, not Darko.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. That's
Yes.
Kubus and not Darko.
This is still leftovers from Friday's stream. That's why I had to readjust my camera and everything still.
Yeah, but mind you, we had a long stream on Friday, but we'll
Oof, that
get
was
into
fun.
that. Yeah, we can actually talk about that right now. So,
Yeah.
Friday. So actually, last week we had this thing on Thursday called AWS Modern Application Dev Day, which is a all day, well, not all day, part of a day, 12 talks across three different tracks on modern application development.
Mm.
There were a lot of deep dive technical talks there delivered by a lot of AWS developer advocates. It was really fun. It was fun to prepare, fun to record, and we got a lot of good feedback from all of you. So thank you all for watching that. Kobus, like it's been a couple of days since that thing passed. What's your recap on the entire Dev Day that happened last week?
Um, I really enjoy it. It's one of those like it's not that often we get to completely geek out and go super deep on all
Yep.
the nice new toys and things that are available for when you're building applications.
Yeah.
Because often we focus on what the majority of people are doing is, especially as you go closer to what's currently like the best way trademark way to build applications. And yes, there's only one way, of course. You have to
Of
buy the
course.
book. Um, um, it's fun because then you get into that edge cases where they're still busy solving the problem. So watching the problem space and then seeing the solutions that are emerging is always fun for me. So
Yeah.
specifically like the event-driven architectures. Another one that's always fun for me is Alex's Lambda power tuning
Yeah.
talk, where you
Yeah.
go that because that's so unintuitive. Is like give it a higher tier to make it more expensive per 100 milliseconds to execute to save money. It's like, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah. And also the graphs are interesting. It's not just like straight lines like dip and yeah.
Yeah, there's a fine valley where it's the best way to do it. Yeah, so
Mm,
that's cool. I mean, I unfortunately didn't have a chance to watch anybody else's presentations because I was busy either watching my own or answering questions during my own one.
mm,
Knowing the capabilities of our team, what they can deliver, I'm pretty
mm.
sure that the sessions were amazing and they were well attended. And judging by the questions we received from the people during the event and after the event, it was really, really, I would say it was really engaging. And
Oh yeah.
kind of shoehorning into that as the next day, right? So the day after on Friday, The standard edition of the stream was usually on an hour and a half from 11 to 12:30, but we changed it up a bit on Friday where we've actually ran a stream for 4 hours. So from 9 a.m. in the
Hmm.
morning to 1 p.m. in the afternoon, where it was basically manned by both Cobus, myself, and a whole lot of people from AWS. So at one point there was 6 of us on stream for a brief moment.
That was quite a lot of fun, and it answered the questions I've always had, which is how long does my camera battery last, and that
Yeah,
is 3 hours and 28 minutes.
yeah, exactly. Cobus had to switch cameras midway because,
Oh yeah.
well, not midway, but almost at the end when his battery ran out. I was I bought myself a dummy battery now, so I run my camera off power. But other than that, I think the battery can last like an hour and a half or 2 hours at max. So
Oh wow. Yeah. No,
it's
that's
it's
not.
not the
Yeah.
best, and especially it's not the best when you record something and you're attempt number 4 of recording something, and then the battery dies midway, and it's like you
Yep.
can't.
I mean, the list of things that have gone wrong during recording sessions. I know someone just posted one this morning where
Yeah,
someone started drilling right above him. I had a flock of hardy-does fly past during my summer talk earlier this year.
what are those?
They are very loud, big, obnoxious birds that go, ah, ah, but like really loudly.
Really? Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you I mean the audience here can, hey, Ganesh is here. A lot of people who join the streams can sometimes hear me airplanes at my close to my window because I actually live like 5 kilometers from an airport. And interesting enough, it's not as loud as you would expect. Might be due to the Corona times, but also I maybe don't even hear it anymore. I got so used to it. So yeah.
There's
But yeah,
slightly fewer airplanes around, I've heard.
I would say, but they're now actually moving. Berlin has 2 airports, and they're moving the main airport
Oh,
closer
is
to
the
me
other one
right now.
finally going again?
Fine, after 10 years.
The
After 10 years.
cheapest. The one with the actual BER code.
Yeah, the BER. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the problem is that they tried to open it 10 years ago, and it was like 2 weeks before opening they just canceled it.
Oh, wow.
And it was like it went so far that people booked flights from that airport. People had things already set
Ooh.
from that airport, and they just nope, we can't open it. And it's
Yeah. But I remember now the current one, you've got the TXL,
TXL,
what's the name?
Tegel,
TXL.
Tegel
That's one of
airport.
the weird ones. It's shaped like an oval or a hexagon or
Yeah,
something,
yeah, it's
and
like a
you've got like a
hexagon.
little.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very weird. It's got its own little mini passport control with every single gate,
yeah.
and in an
E-
yeah, it's very weird.
Every gate has a passport control. Every gate has a security as well. So leaving from Tegel is okay-ish. I mean, it takes like you literally need to be at the gate when the boarding starts,
Yeah.
and you're fine, right? You can enter the airport 10 minutes before the boarding starts unless you have check-in. So it is very practical. It takes you 45 seconds from the gate to the taxi. So that's something I'm a big fan of. If you ever flew in Munich from I think the H gates to the S-Bahn, so to the train, it takes you like 45 minutes to get there.
Oh wow.
It's ridiculous.
No, my worst with that was London. Landed one morning at 5 a.m. Took them 2.5 hours to open the plane door because something broke
Oh man.
and no aircon in the plane.
Ah man, I would start rebelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no. But okay. In general, the Friday stream was really cool. A lot of people joined. A lot of great questions. We had a really good discussion with the folks. So I think the stream is available in recorded form somewhere on the Twitches and the YouTube. So if you're interested
Um,
into like following the long term or listening people ramble in the background, check it out.
yeah, it's on the normal registration link. So even if you didn't attend today's event, if you now go to that link, it'll ask you for some details and then give you access to all the recordings.
Okay, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. No. But I'm speaking about our Q&A. Our
Oh, sorry.
Friday Q&A. The
I
Friday Q&A
have not
was
had my second coffee. Sorry, just give me a few minutes.
Friday Q&A was great. Yeah, that's on Twitch, and it's also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel which is not linked anywhere here, but it's not Cobus, not Darko if you look for it. Yeah. Hey Mixed and hey Ganesh. Hi guys. Hey, DeAndre is also here. Hello.
Yeah, some of our regular viewers.
So, before we head into our main topic of the day, I would like to also mention a couple of things, Cobus, that happened last week. I like to go over like the news on AWS, and
Yes.
one of my things that I do every week is I record a podcast in my own native language, and I basically take the releases from the entire week and just kind of go through them and kind of make a 20 to 25 minute long podcast where I regurgitate what happened last week, what's new, what new features came out on AWS, and what people should be interested in. And a couple of things kind of were sticking out last week.
Oh yeah, there were some nice releases.
There were
Oh
some,
yeah.
there were not a lot of releases, but there were some pretty interesting ones. So AWS Glue. Glue has 3 additional features added to it. Like that was my biggest. I mean, it's not the biggest release of last week, but the Glue has like
Mm-hmm.
you can now crawl MongoDB databases. So before you couldn't have crawlers
Ooh.
on MongoDB and document them. You
Mm.
can do that right now. Glue also was able to access your Kafka instances, but only managed Kafka instances. So if you
Okay.
self-manage a Kafka instance, it doesn't work. Well, since last week you can. So you can,
Oh
even if you're
wow.
running your own Kafka instance, you can do that. And last, regarding Glue, if I can recall, I'm trying to remember the name. Yeah, so Glue streaming, ETL jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
far, when you wanted to access data on Glue, right, or work with data on Glue, you can only read data in JSON, CSV, XML, and Parquet.
Yeah.
Since last week, you can do it in Apache Avro. What does
Oh,
that
that's a
mean?
nice one as
I don't
well.
know. I don't know what Apache Avro is.
There's a whole suite of tools for big data analytics that actually use that. And
Okay.
while they can use the other formats like Parquet, it actually improves performance quite significantly.
Okay,
Um,
that's very cool.
yeah.
So that's pretty interesting, and I
Mm.
think it's a really nice. I mean, 3 new features for Glue. Hey, it's spoon
Mm.
vent, I guess, slowly.
Yes,
Um,
yes, that's the thing. But I mean, yeah, just quickly, for those not familiar with what AWS Glue is, it's a
yeah,
service that allows you to crawl data on one side to first discover what does the shape of the data look like. Then it builds up a catalog of what the tables are and the different sources are. And then you set up ETL jobs. So you can actually take the data and just copy it straight across to another source, or you can actually perform your ETL operations on them. And even do some interesting things like use machine learning to detect duplicate records and then dedupe your data set. So moving data, cleaning data, transforming data for your warehouse or lake, basically.
yeah, yeah. In Ganesh comments, isn't AWS itself just Glue? What sources? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know.
No, no, that's AWS Lambda.
That's AWS Lambda is the glue here.
Yes.
I would argue is it Lambda the glue or S3? But one of the two are definitely glue. Um,
I'd say I'd
I
say
would say Lambda. I would say Lambda still. Lambda is
Lambda
the
because you can get it in between all the different bits of the
yeah.
services, and then S3 would be the pieces of wood to stick it all together.
I would say
I don't
so.
know.
Yeah,
The analogy is breaking down.
or the table where you work on, because you always take something in S3.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the major est is that a word? No, it's not. The biggest feature
Biggest.
last week, the biggest feature last week was regarding RDS and EMR. So
Ooh,
both
yes.
RDS, so Amazon Relational Database Service, and Amazon Elastic MapReduce, so EMR or the ability to run Apache Spark on AWS, can run on Graviton 2 right now. So here comes the ARM CPU gods, if you would like to call them, to coming to relational database services and Elastic MapReduce. So now it gives you basically the ability to run your EMR clusters and your RDS databases only open source for now. So I think RDS currently just
Probably
RDS on
MySQL and Post.
exactly MariaDB, Postgres, and MySQL runs
Hmm.
on Graviton 2. Aurora doesn't yet. Aurora is still pending. So you can run RDS with Graviton 2, and apparently it gives you the ability. I've seen some numbers now. These are marketing numbers, by the way. So
Hmm.
you cannot.
Oh.
I mean, it says 52% price reduction performance, up to
Hmm.
52% price reduction, and in essence, it gives you 35% more performance compared to the previous generation instances. So that is pretty cool, right?
Well, there's actually Liz Fong Rong.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
Liz Fong. Yeah,
remember.
yeah, Liz Fong. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we
Um, she had a nice post on how Honeycomb switched over to on the compute side, where they
Yeah,
went from I think M5 largest to M or an extra largest to over, and that's quite a nice
yeah. They had
benefit as well.
C5. They had
Yeah.
C5 instances, and they moved to M6,
Mm.
M6G to the Graviton instances, and they saved a lot of money. Number one, because they're cheaper, and number two, because they had to use less instances. So that's pretty cool.
Mm.
And last week we had this Elasticache. You can run Elasticache Redis on Graviton, and this week we have RDS that you can run on Graviton. We have EMR that you can run on Graviton. And again, with EMR, it
Mm.
gives you again 35% lower cost, up to 50%, 15% improved performance. So that is pretty cool. I am happy to see more things being available to ARM because we need more ARM CPUs out there. Oh, and why is mine
Mm.
why is my little screen stopped?
Oh,
So
screensaver.
no, it's not. I think it's actually this monitor is very old, and from time to time its caps can break out. So now
Oh.
it will not turn on at all. So I would have to turn it off, and maybe if I turn it on, it will come on. Let me try. I doubt it.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it's on. It's on. It's actually on. I can feel the electricity, but it doesn't come on. So it's
There's nobody home.
there's nobody home. It's old electronics. I need to basically recap it or change the capacitors on it or something like that. But I don't have the time.
So you're going to
So
tell me you're going to put a cap in it?
I'm gonna put a cap in it. So yeah, ARM is great, and
Mm.
it's pretty cool. So here's a couple of comments from Ganesh. He's waiting for Fargate plus Aurora. I'm not sure when
Mm.
Fargate is going to come out to on ARM. I'm sure it's going to happen at one point, right? Because
Mm.
the goal of this entire thing is to make things cheaper. It makes it more
Yeah.
affordable to you all. So if we can run it on ARM, why not? Um, so a question from Ganesh, not that, but how much of
Here we
this
go.
is because of vCPU building full cores on ARM versus possibly threads on x86? I'm not very intimate with the architecture of our EC2 instances
Mm.
in that perspective. And now, are ARMs using full cores or they're also threads? I don't know. I've not played around with it too much, but in general, okay, ARM doesn't support SMD, so it
Mm.
doesn't
Yeah.
support threading.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that could be also the thing, right? It could be better, but mind you, these processors also, these CPUs are also designed by us, right? So we have a company
Yeah.
called Annapurna Labs that makes them for us, right? Which is owned by Amazon, and so they're specifically made for running on EC2. So the same thing, like what is the name of the Redshift thing? Redshift, the RA3
Oh, the
instances.
Aqua.
Is it Aqua? Yeah, RA. No,
It's accelerated query engine.
yeah, but it runs its own own specific processors. It's basically
Oh, no, no,
processors
no, no.
that's
Not
RA3.
quite the FPGAs. Field programmable gate arrays. There
FPGAs
we
are one
go.
thing, no, no, but something we released on reInvent. I think it's on the new instances. The new.
Just hold on a second. Sorry.
Okay, I could have heard just some noise. So there's something on Redshift. I forgot the name of the instance types. They are, I believe, RA3 instances, which are built exclusively for Redshift, and the CPUs in themselves are made for Redshift. So again, and Switch and Ganesh, what you're mentioning, the elastic inference, those are inf instances. Those are
Mm.
specifically made for inference. But yeah, there's also that. So custom silicon can help a lot. I mean, not to mention the thing you mentioned about FPGAs or FPGAs are just
Mm.
whole another thing. And I would love to be able to program FPGAs, but I don't know how to.
They're actually quite fun. I did
They
some
are.
like jeepers 18 years ago. How many?
Yeah.
Probably about 18 years ago, if I have to do thumbs up. And basically, is you've got a set of multiple output gates but limited input gates. So there are
Yep.
ways that you then mesh things across and just reprogram them, and you hope the programming actually works. So sometimes what would happen is you would get a bad write, and then the app just or the hardware just doesn't work the way it was supposed
Yeah.
to.
Well, and for people who do not know what FPGAs are, and Codebus mentioned this, it's called field programmable gate arrays. Basically, it's a piece of silicon, it's like a processor that you can program on the processor level. So you program how the different gate arrays work on that processor. So you can like that's the most commonly used FPGAs are most commonly used to emulate other processors or other chips. So you have an FPGA and you program it to act like a specific silicon, right? Like a specific, for example, like if you want to emulate an Super Nintendo, you can have an FPGA that's basically programmed to act like a set of chips from a Super Nintendo, right? It can act like its own Ricoh CPU or whatnot, and then yeah, that's what people do to achieve proper emulation. And that's not even emulation; that's simulation through FPGA. So,
Oh yeah.
cool. And the last relatively big feature from last week was EKS supports Kubernetes 1.18. So for people who
Yes.
we were commenting this on last week on Friday, I think. What is the latest version of Kubernetes on AWS? And it's 1.18. And somebody was asking us for a specific feature. Is it available? Why is it not available on AWS? I can't recall the name of the feature. But if it's part of 118. And 118, according to the news release, has like a beta version of topology manager. Server-side apply is in beta on 1.18. So yeah, it's available now on EKS. So if you wish to launch 1.18 Kubernetes clusters on AWS, you can do that. And speaking of Kubernetes, let's make a nice segue into containers on AWS. So I'm sorry.
We need to get you some of the stress ball toys.
I know.
Yeah,
I
no, but seriously,
play with my container. Well, it's so cool. It's a Midas container, right? I paid too much for it. Like this is one of those. This is a container those people buy from for like their model train sets and the little things.
The fancy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and this little, like I was expecting it to be bigger. Like when I saw it online, I was expecting it to be like, hey, it's a container. This thing costs 25 euros. This little piece of plastic costs 25 euros. So,
is it plastic? It's not even metal.
It's plastic. It's nothing.
Darka, you should have put that 25 euros towards your own 3D printer. Make your own.
Yeah, so this is like, I need to use these 25 euros. So I'm going to be shilling this container a lot. So, yeah.
So let's make it hard. Darko, can you please show us the architecture visually for 2 containers?
I need to spend like 200 euros just to get to show a class of containers.
Chopping off Ganesh. That's that classic joke of how do you get out of the room where there's no window and door and there's only a table?
How?
Chop it in half. Why? Because 2 halves make a whole. Well, yeah. Cool. Let's go on.
What's inside this container? It's nothing. It's air. It's expensive air.
No. Don't lie. It's your monolith because you've only got one container, so it has to be the monolith.
My monolithic application sits in this container, and I position it like this, so it will act like as a monolith. But yeah, so next year I'm gonna save up to buy one more, so I can have a cluster. I need to ask Docker to sponsor me. Maybe Docker can buy me a bunch of these, and I can make Docker Swarm or something like, I don't know.
But we've got these little sponge EKS containers, like the stress balls we had, that are container shaped with even the riffles in them that you can, if you go chat to some people, they did a batch of them, I think like 2 years ago. Some of the people in Seattle still, ask around. There might still be some of those because Ian might get a few, and you can build.
I don't have a lot of like swag from AWS. I became a developer advocate when the plague hit. So my level of swag is low. Well, I got something in the mail last week. I got me a mug from a conference I spoke at. So stickers I have a full box of stickers. So that's like, stickers are common, but what is Cope's gonna show now? Oh, interesting. Monolith monorepo. Yeah. So I'm thinking how can I get more, what is it? Oh, AWS socks. Well, I do have AWS socks on me, and they're serverless socks. They have Sam the squirrel on them, and it says, on the socks, it says serverless is more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. But this is the best swag. This is the best thing.
The hoodies, yeah.
The AWS hoodie is the best swag I ever had. So, but I did get like a goodie bag from Ukraine last week. It came with this lovely little mug all about AWS. It was a conference in Ukraine. The mug comes with its own coaster, and it's enclosed. So
Ooh.
I can have warm coffee as I talk to you.
Oh, nice.
I got a
That's that's
backpack,
that's
and
a very sad situation.
I got a backpack full of chocolates. So yeah, they don't care about my looks apparently. But
Physique.
yeah, physique. Yeah. um, okay.
Uh,
Cool. So let's talk about container scopes. Let's talk about these
yes.
expensive things. And mind you, running a container cluster on AWS per month is cheaper than me buying this.
Yeah.
So, Cobus,
Easily.
now you are the more experienced person with containers. I have only dabbled in containers. I have not had production workloads running on containers by myself. I've played around with them. I supported customers running ECS. But I would like to hear your container experience. How did you first run into containers? If you have done it before AWS or before AWS was a thing, or how was your first experience with containers on AWS?
So first, I'm trying to think now. First AWS one I can remember because it was very janky, as they say. Because at that point, I did not believe we need an orchestrator or a scheduler. And why would you use ECS? They're trying to lock you in. So what did I do? I
Was it
went and
wrong?
wrote Bash. No, I went even one better. I did
Okay.
Bash scripts hooked into all the different what do you call it, steps inside code deploy.
Okay.
Yes. So now this was a lot of fun. So I had this nice pattern with all these different scripts. If the container was running, go, do a graceful shutdown, give it 10 seconds. If it wasn't dying, kill 9, poof, dead. Lots of other issues with that as well at some point. And yeah, it kind of worked, but it's one of those like you had to keep looking at things and making sure that they're running and they're up. And it was literally just because I was too bloody stubborn to use ECS.
Yeah.
Where in hindsight goes, at that point, that specific setup did require only one container per host because there were some performance requirements. So we ran in host networking mode, as well as we couldn't saturate it with more than one container because of interesting varied workloads. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I learned there is that you can get an exit code for a process above 128, I believe,
Yeah, I
because
think 128
above
is
two.
right.
Yes. So what does that start meaning? Is if you get a code like more than that.
Okay.
Do you know?
Does it get truncated or?
No. If you literally get an exit code of something like 200 and after 225, I think was my one, or something like that.
Okay.
It means that it's you exited with code 128 indicates that a child process did something to you some way.
Okay.
If I remember correctly now, I've only dug into that once. And what that ended up being is that me with my perfect scripts had this little regex, or grep rather than regex, to figure out how to kill the container when it was running that included a portion of the service name. Now, that one specific service, for some reason, every time we deployed it, it would come up and then immediately die, and thereafter it'd be fine. Like, no issues. I mean, if we spun up our hands, it's like weird. So we kind of like didn't dig into it too much because we knew how to do just like, just kick it a second time and then it worked. And it's like, and then after a while I started digging in and then learned about this nice little status code and then realized that, so when your service name contains the word, because I was deleting an archive that had the words ARCH in it or E or something like that, and you have a service that kind of has that same name and you're killing with that base, do you also kill your parent process with your grep inside my bash script?
Oh, okay.
So mid pull or something. I can't remember the exact step, but I was killing my own process from a child process, killing the parent. And yeah, that was kind of when I started realizing maybe I shouldn't roll my own. And then switch things to Mesos.
Exactly. How much time do you invest into building your own thing versus using something? It's the whole it's the whole story about I want to write a blog. But first, let me create my blogging platform from scratch. Right. So it's kind of that approach. I fully agree. But one of the things. Okay, first thing. We dove into Cobus's first experience with containers. Let's explain what containers are or why are they important.
Yes.
Cobus, are containers virtual machines?
That's a trick question because are we talking Firecracker or not?
Exactly. But So containers are
No,
basically,
they're not.
yeah, they're not. But when we talk about containers, containers basically are a next step evolution in. So if you would look at the compute or computer evolution or compute platform evolution diagram, like a little chart, we start with physical machines, right? We all had our physical servers somewhere in a data center. Like that's how I started, how you started, I guess, and a lot of other people here, unless you're younger. Then we moved on to virtual machines. And for me, virtual machines were like the bee's knees. I thought when virtual
Mm.
machines came out, I'm like, that's it. Like nothing ever gets better than virtual machines. Like you can have unlimited resources with virtual machines. You can just change operating systems. You can copy. You can
Mm.
snapshot and restore. Why would anybody
Yeah.
ever need anything more than virtual machines?
And then Vagrant came along.
Yeah, a Vagrant
And that was
helped
like,
improve provisioning virtual machines like from the command line with all the configuration items is just
Mhm.
perfect.
Or sets of them.
Or
Vagrant
sets
also
of them,
allows you
yeah,
to
yeah,
actually do sets of them, which is like think a Docker Compose nowadays,
yeah,
but just for VMs. Yeah.
yeah. And then all of a sudden, somebody mentioned containers. Now, containers didn't come out straight after virtual machines. Containers existed for a long time. I think
Mm.
there's this thing called in Linux. I forgot it's the
Jail,
jail, yeah, Linux jail
LX,
or something like that.
LXC,
I forgot. Basically, there's a
zones,
Linux
zones from
zones from
Solaris.
Solaris. That's more of a virtual machine. Zones from Solaris are
Mm.
more virtual machines. So Solaris OS or things for Spark Sun Spark systems
Mm.
use something called zones. Zones were basically gives you the ability to chop out the OS on a physical machine into
Mm.
multiple OSs. So it's kind of a mix in between virtual machines and containers because it uses the same underlying operating system with just some changes. So
Mm.
it's kind of the same thing. But when containers came out, or like when people think about containers, like, oh, it's Docker, right? And Docker was kind of the first big thing we want to talk about. And my first interaction with containers was like seeing that little downfall video meme, the Hitler movie. Uh, there was like a meme about it where he complains that why would we put virtual machines and those kind of things. But containers
Yeah.
basically gives you the ability to abstract virtual machines even more. Instead
Mm.
of provisioning a completely separate operating system with all the bells and whistles, every element of an operating system you need, from kernel to supporting all the hardware to all the things, you have this thing called a container, which contains everything your application needs, so all the libraries,
Hmm.
all the requirements, all the things, plus it's able to utilize the underlying operating system as its base, right? So you isolate your
Yeah.
application in a container, right? Uh, think of it. Think of a. How can
Well,
how can we abstract this even further? Think of a. Uh,
so
Go
your
ahead.
operating system's running over here.
Yeah.
Then you've got the container, which has it's effectively just a zip file, just
Yeah.
for those not
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah.
And then instead of the whole OS running inside that, it actually hooks directly into the kernel to make use of the underlying host operating system to
Yeah.
run. So it doesn't do its own memory management. It doesn't, well, it runs processes, but via the kernel underneath. It doesn't
Exactly.
start up its own kernel like a VM.
Yeah, so it uses less resources. It isolates the application running from everything else. You can have if you ever worked with Ruby or with Python and its own set of dependencies, and you know how that can be
Hmm.
complicated running Ruby virtual
Ruby, Ruby,
machine,
Ruby.
Ruby, and the different types of gems you have. And if you have two applications running on the same server, requiring two different sets of gems, sometimes that can be a
Mm.
complex thing. Um, Python has virtual environments, but even that is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So Docker basically gives you the ability to run multiple different things with completely different quote unquote
Mm.
architectures or requirements on the same box, right? And the whole goal here is not to have more resources because in essence you have the virtual machine, but you are able to switch or shift that load much faster by the use
Mm.
of containers. Like even if you have a single, even if you have a single like server running somewhere, like my lovely Raspberry Pi here, right? So even if this thing ran a bunch of containers, I can easily switch the given resources to different components of my Raspberry or my different Docker images or Docker containers running on it. So I'm
Mm.
able to manage that set of resources much more effectively.
Mm. And also be able to move them between different sets of hardware,
Yes,
because that's the other
that's
big portability is like
yeah,
if that Raspberry Pi fails, who cares? Spin up another one, just move the containers and
yeah.
boom, there you go.
And Docker is supposed to have killed it runs on my laptop meme, but it didn't. But it helps you, right? I told this story a long time ago, and a lot of times there were people, in the company I used to work for, will build applications on their workstations, and it just perfectly works on their lovely laptop or whatnot. But when you when you push it to a Windows Server 2012, it just breaks. And this is what happens with containers. If you run, develop, test, and debug your applications within your containers, right? If you run them on containers and then you execute the same thing on a container somewhere else, it should in essence run the same. Now it's not always like that, it's not always perfect. It's very exactly but let's remove the banner.
Oh, yeah.
So
There we
yeah,
go. Cool. Yeah.
exactly. We'll ship your machine. So basically, instead of shipping your machines, shipping a virtual machine to run in production, it's it ships only the requirements your application needs, or the running environments your application needs to in a container. So containers are a godsend when it comes to these
Yeah.
kind of things. When it comes to compatibility and testing, my biggest experience with containers, like as I said, I haven't run containers in production. My biggest experience on containers is at home. So I have a few things running on my home. Like I have my Pi-hole, I have my home assistant, home smart home thing running as well. I have a little Intel NUC, little PC, running a bunch of containers on it, and that's how I do it. I mean, I could have set up
Yeah.
maybe virtual machines on some host or something, or have a bunch of Raspberry Pis, but my Intel NUC is perfectly capable of running a bunch of Docker containers, and they can be completely different. And I don't have to break my OS on it by
Installing all this stuff.
exactly. So I can
Yeah.
just literally pull down I can run a whole Pi-hole with a single command by running Docker run, and then just pointing it to an image, and it just works.
Yeah.
So
No, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I've actually, in terms of like running it, I've my first obviously running containers just with Docker itself directly is like usually people's first experience. But I used Mesos and Marathon back in the day.
yeah,
Used ECS. I've not actually used Docker Swarm, funnily enough. I was never in a situation where that made sense. I've even used Nomad on a project. I'm
yeah.
still keen, but it never got to a production scale without the Nomad one. So the ones I still want to
Okay.
run properly in production are Nomad from HashiCorp,
Mm-hmm.
as well as I've had opportunities to run Kubernetes in production, but I've always convinced people that let's not take on this complex beat just yet. Because I'm always hesitant for, especially the small engineering teams. If you start going
Yeah.
like, oh, let's just throw Kubernetes at it, it's like, hold on. Do you know how to fix it? Do you know
Yeah.
what's going on under the hood? And it's always that bit of cautioning that you have to give people. Is like, yes, it's super popular. Yes, it's solving problems, but do you know exactly the problem it's solving, and is it your problem? Because otherwise, you're taking on more problems. So
I would agree, and a lot of people try to, like it's killing a fly with a bazooka, right? Kubernetes is amazing. I mean,
yeah,
seeing what people do on Kubernetes, it's not popular because it's a meme. It's popular because it's really
yeah.
cool, right? It's really
It's
good. It does its job. But I mean, use it wisely. Let's call it that way.
the challenge is with any new tech. It's like some people often don't understand that tech is the same as literally like clothing fashion, where it's in vogue to wear
Oh
something at the
yeah,
moment. It's sometimes in vogue to be working with something. Now, on the other side, if you've got Kubernetes experience at the moment, because it's increased in usage so much, there's a big demand for skills, which means the price of salaries go up, which means that it's not necessarily a bad thing to have experience in Kubernetes at all at the moment. I would, if you can get it, I would highly recommend it. But you always have to balance that against the needs of the business. And what I've seen too often is people who want Kubernetes experience at all costs, and then they shove it in, and then they leave 2 months later after they've got some experience. And that's always a
shoehorning
nightmare.
technology, and yeah.
Yeah.
I used to work with people who were like that. So they basically saw a shiny new piece of tech. They're like, we need to implement this tomorrow. We just, this is so good. We need this.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you can play with it, but what?
Um,
I'm not gonna replace my entire infrastructure with this shiny new thing on your whim. It doesn't work that way. And Kubernetes in itself has its place in the world quite amazingly. I've worked with customers who
Mm,
have massive Kubernetes clusters and running
yeah.
massive workloads which have very complex orchestration needs. So Kubernetes for that is just works amazingly.
Yeah.
So yeah. Uh, and Gunnar
Yeah.
says
No, this
you
comment is
do
so
need
true.
12
Let's
years
pop it on the screen.
Kubernetes.
Yeah. Mm. At least.
At least.
And for those who don't get the joke, often you get recruiters that are asking, Kubernetes hasn't been along this round, Go hasn't been along this round, but you
Yeah.
still get job postings. And I want to say there was one of the big companies that actually recently asked for more Kubernetes experience than was physically possible, which was quite a bit of a chuckle, but yeah.
Imagine that. Like, you need
Mm,
25 years of AWS experience.
mm. But I mean, yeah, the other side of containers, which made them so popular as well, is the tooling around it. Because if you think about the shipping industry,
Yeah.
literally the physical, we've got those little Maersk and other company containers that Docker has there. The reason that changed shipping forever is that you now need the same crane
Yeah.
for all the different containers, because guess what, the fittings are the same. There's some conditions like it has to be a certain weight, it has to be balanced, etc., etc. But whatever you put inside is, they don't really care. It's entirely up to you. And now it's the same with software. All the tooling now takes care of that for you. It's also some of the cross-cutting concerns like monitoring, logging, metrics, you can easily apply to regardless of what's running inside the container.
Yeah, so the entire metaphor of a container is not just it's a thing where you place your things. It's also very compatible with other things. It's pluginable.
Mm,
It's built consistently across the things. The same as shipping containers. As Kobe said, you can take a shipping container from any shipping company in the world, and it should work fit on any shipping rig. It should be able
mm,
to lift it with any shipping or maritime crane or whatnot. The same goes for software containers for well, what we call containers in the IT industry. All
mm.
containers all
Where is
containers
it?
should be running the same. All containers should be compatible with all the systems, and they
Wait.
should be pluginable and yeah, all those things. So
Sorry, I actually want to start using my Windows 95 disk for that, but I just put it in it. Yeah.
yeah, so
Um,
so that's kind of the whole
yeah.
point. And but Cobus, so when should people start using containers in a production system?
Um, when or how? Because they're slightly two
When
different
when
questions. When?
when?
Um, At this point in time, I would kind of almost advise everybody to start. There is a subset of challenges that, or systems rather, that have got constraints that mean that containers are not a good fit.
Okay.
But at this point in time, I would advise anybody to do that purely because it makes your entire build and deployment pipeline so much simpler. The
Oh yeah.
tooling itself is because remember, all your build commands actually contain inside your container. We now have got what are called multi-stage build containers. So
Yeah.
you can have one container that you actually use to compile your code. Because, as an example, let's say we're talking Java. Java needs the Java development kit, the JDK, to compile the actual
Yeah.
code into bytecode, and that's then what gets shipped. But you don't need the JDK to actually run it, which is bigger than the JRE, which is the Java runtime. You
Yeah.
can now in a single Docker file define the build image and do whatever steps you need to get it ready, compile your code from there, put it inside your runtime container, and actually use it to run there. So it means that you don't have to worry about any like version compatibilities like you mentioned earlier on servers.
Yeah.
It's so
It
simple. And also, yeah.
it doesn't care about the operating systems also, right? You can
Uh, Bring up the thing.
yeah, so
Just
it
because,
mostly doesn't care about the operating systems,
yes,
let's call it that way.
just to clarify there, so containers, in the way that most people refer to them, mean the ability to run them as containers on Linux as Linux containers. Because remember, there's also a thing, Windows
Windows.
containers,
Yeah,
where you actually run Windows operating system inside a container, but that's not the same container as the container running on Linux.
yeah,
It's API compatible the way it works, and it works. I believe on Windows it uses Hyper-V under the hood to actually spin up a virtual machine that hosts
yeah,
that, or multiples. I'm not entirely sure about that detail, but you can also spin up Windows containers, but
yeah.
they're not nearly as much in use as the plain Linux ones at the moment. If you just look at raw stats.
Exactly. No, no, absolutely. So
Mm,
I'm talking here mostly about Linux distributions. It doesn't care if you're running it on Debian.
mm,
It doesn't care if you're running it on CentOS or Ubuntu. To an extent, there are some things
yeah.
that it cares about. There are potential issues. Is it using, maybe, for example, one of the things I find, if it needs to use a specific tools built into Linux, like its binary files, if this is a GNU version of the binary or if it's a non-GNU or a BSD version of it or whatever. I
Mm,
know that, for example, I think Netcat, there's two
mm.
versions of Netcat. There's the GNU
Oh,
version and there's the non-GNU version. I'm not sure about what is it, because it's, yeah, there you go, there you go. So some things are not compatible all the time, but
mm,
in most use cases you shouldn't care, and that's kind of the beauty of it, because you're not going to run CentOS on your laptop, or even, well, you're going to run Debian, but not CentOS most of the time. And if you run on Apache, you're not going to run Amazon Linux on your laptop.
mm.
But running it like running Gentoo on mine, and then just shipping that container built on my Gentoo system, shipping it to Amazon Linux should work, right? So in most of the cases, but
Um, it should, as long as you're on the same target architecture.
yeah,
Um,
of course,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
no, not yeah,
that's
comparing
kind of,
architectures is something
yeah,
else. Yeah, do not ARM
yeah, yeah.
versus
No, no,
Intel,
no.
and yeah. And Techie Man here says, I think at the end of the day, it's about making your system as available, scalable, and resilient is most important for anything critical.
Mm,
Absolutely, and this is
yeah,
where containers actually help you a lot with that, because they can jump around everything, right? You can have this,
yeah,
if you have a proper orchestration in place, you can run your containers on whatever you want, right?
yeah,
Cobus has this idea to run his containers on his deep racers, and you can. It doesn't care. It just runs. It's
yeah.
Ubuntu for it. It's Intel.
Mm.
Run.
And also not just the running, remember the building, because that's also a big part. Is like, remember, once you have this set up and you've got a container to build, it is literally Docker build. You only need the Docker
Yeah,
binary on whatever operating system you're running, which means you no longer have to worry about, have I installed all the prerequisites?
yeah,
Because that's one of the biggest efforts I saw, if you look 10, 15 years ago, is when setting up CI/CD servers and you've got the worker nodes that actually do the hard work
yeah,
of, compiling the code. You know how much effort that was setting them up and having different fleets. This is the Python fleet. This is the Java fleet. This is
yeah.
the etc. And oh, sorry, wrong version of Ruby. It's like that was rough.
Separate fleets are a thing of the past, relatively, right? So separate
Mm,
fleets are, I used to work for a company where we had dedicated fleets of servers for things, right?
mm,
You provision 500 physical servers for a single thing, and that's all they do. They only work for this application, and they cannot be used for anything else. If you want them for something else, they have to be decommissioned and then reconfigured completely. And mind you, the lead time for configuring 500 servers, physical servers, was 6 months. So
mm,
even on decommissioning, those kind of servers took like 6 months to a year, which is ridiculous. So
mm.
nobody does all of that stuff, right? So
Yeah, no, no, definitely. I mean, there's a fun question here. Actually, we have our first one of the day, which is boom. The normal standard flow to update containers is always push a Docker file to create a ECR image and then build a service task using that image using Fargate ECS. So yes, so you don't push the Docker file. What you do is you need to use the Docker file to build the image
yeah,
somewhere. That typically would be either locally or preferably on some kind of CI/CD server, like let's say you use AWS Code Build for that.
yeah,
And then once you've got that image built wherever that is, from there you push the actual image to
yeah.
your repository, and then you actually do the deployment. And actually, if you give me a second, I've got an interesting deck I should be able to pull up here just to talk about deploying latest. Because that is a fun one that becomes a bit of a problem at some point.
So yeah, Dev Lucas or Lucas F Santos. Yeah, basically you push those images, you create those, you build those images somewhere. It can be on a code build in your pipeline, whatever. It can be on your laptop, and as long as you push them to ECR, and then ECS, Fargate, whatever you are using as your orchestration engine, uh, is able to access those images and run a container off of it. That would be the proper workflow.
Mm. Yeah, let me quickly, 2 seconds. I just have to copy it across the machines quickly.
Uh-huh.
I'm still running on my
Uh,
interesting setup.
I'm just gonna explain something to Dennis Key 1001. It is still rough
Hmm.
building for building iOS apps in CI, and that's basically
Yeah.
pertaining to Lucas's question. iOS apps are very complex in a sense that you need an Apple system to compile them, right? So you need to
Yeah.
compile them on an Apple-based system. Now, there are services out there, not from AWS. There are some services and service offerings that can give you the ability to have a pipeline exclusively for iOS applications, because they utilize a lot of Macs. I don't know how that works. Are there virtual machines? Are there Mac Minis? Like it's
The Mac
so
Minis, I think. I've
and
seen
for me,
racks full of
yeah,
those.
I think it's so backwards that thing. I know that Apple had Xserve, like the Macintosh servers and whatnot. Um, but for me, the requirement to run an Apple OS on a Apple device legally to compile something for iOS is
Hmm.
ridiculous. Like I'm it,
Remember, take a step back. Apple is a hardware company. Remember, Apple's
I
primary
fully agree.
focus is providing hardware. They want to sell their hardware. How do you do that? Force people to use your hardware.
I'm not saying that's not their business model. I'm saying that's bad. I don't like that thing. I'm saying that's not customer focused. That's not very prosumer, right? Pro
Hmm.
consumer. So I would say that, at least giving the people the ability to compile their iOS applications on Linux systems, because a CI CD for Apple is something that
Hmm.
is overly complex. Like you have to rely on bells and whistles, on glue, on lambda, on string and rope, or however we like to call it, to compile iOS applications. It's just ridiculous. No.
Hmm.
So show us
Um,
your slide. I see that it's ready.
Yes, I found my slide. Oh, no, no, add to stream. There we go. Don't remove. There we go. So basically, let me just quickly get the question away.
I
Yes.
got it. I
Oh,
got it.
okay. You can't click on that.
Yep.
So the reason why I said I want to bring this up is because often people, when they build but Docker by default, if you don't specify a tag, it'll tag the image with latest.
Yep.
And what you often see is people saying, just deploy the container and don't specify the version number or the tag at least for it. And there's a scenario where this becomes very, very bad, which is, let's say you're deploying and you've got like you can see there are 5 of them deployed with the latest tag.
Yeah.
Now what happens is we build a new tag and we re-tag it with the latest and push it. So now when I pull latest, I actually get the one with 5 twos, not the 5 ones.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
far, so good, right? Except that there's a scaling event and I haven't done my deployment yet. Now I've got
Okay.
a mix match of things in production. So this becomes a problem. So you don't want to do that. Use that SHA. And then what happens is when that building event happens, guess what? You scale up with that first version. So be explicit. Please don't use latest.
No.
You will
No.
at some point
Absolutely.
get burned by this. Also, because of that, even if you use public images, they sometimes replace them with the latest ones as well. So you might get
Yeah.
something completely different. They might have bumped a new version. My scars from this come from Alpine and libc, not libc, LibreSSL versus OpenSSL when they did that switch. Now,
Okay.
at that point, I did not know that the uneven numbers in Alpine were considered unstable,
Okay.
which meant that halfway through my migration cycle of things, containers just randomly started breaking one day. And that was because at that point they had, because I was using 3.7 at that point or 3.5,
Okay.
and they'd switched from OpenSSL to LibreSSL, and there were a lot of downstream compatibility issues with things. But given the unstable branch tag, I should have known better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Exactly. Oh man. No. So I mean, this is a fair point for a lot of things when it comes to software development. Version pin all the things. It's very important that you
Mm.
version pin stuff. I make the same mistake when I'm doing CDK. I don't version pin. I say use any version above this one.
Uh-huh. How did that work out for you?
It breaks things, right? So
Yeah.
version pin, especially for things in production, if you're testing, it can be okay, right? You can play around
Mm.
and you can change those things. But in production, absolutely version pin. Relying on latest is like you're just hoping that the latest version is okay, right? And that it's just or
Uh,
anything, or not just okay, it may be okay, but that it is will work the same way as the previous one will. So and you don't have that guarantee. That's very important. So it's
let's
so
actually, I want to paste this quickly. There's a very nice one for this, which is the equivalent, which is the Russian roulette of RM.
oh,
Um, yes, this is, let me quickly put it up here as a
RMRF, the
banner.
script, I saw it.
Yeah. So this is what it looks like. Pop it on the
Yeah.
screen quickly. Which basically what it does is that you've got a 1 out of 6 chance of having your entire operating system start deleting, because that's what RMRF does in
Yeah.
Slash. Other times it'll just go click as if you survived the Russian roulette game. Yeah.
One of the things I would do here instead of how I would improve this is put no hop in front of RMRF.
Oh yeah. Oh, you can't access it then. Yeah.
So you can't hang it up. So,
Oh.
okay, so
Oh.
something more from Lucas. A good example of a tag would be something like production and then the name, the date stamp means the first deployment of the day. Whenever I do the new deployment using CDK, for example, I will update a version. Of course, this case it's just an example; it will not fill all places. But
So first thing over here, if you're tagging something, I would not have the word production in there, because if you tell me that there's a tag for production and a tag for non-production, you're kind of missing a lot of benefit of Docker. You should have a tag. That tag is run inside development, is run inside staging, is run inside production if you have those tiered environments. You don't want to build specially for production, because that also tells me that you might have special things you add to it for production. That kind of breaks the model.
I
Yeah,
would
so
always keep versions. I would rely just on versions, right? You're gonna bump up the version. Also, there's no, in most cases, there's no production version of a code of an application. You're not getting, Windows 2010 to Windows 10 2004 prod, right? You're getting Windows 2004, and 2004 can be used also in development, can be on testing and those kind of things. So, and this is where your entire version control comes into play, right? You understand what is implemented in this specific tag. And that tag can be both in development, both in production, and those things. Now, if you want to add additional tags, but this is more into source control, about that this is code that actually entered production, because not all versions enter production. That's also an important thing. But I would not tag a version specifically with production, right? So that would be my my thing here. And when it comes to fallback, you don't have a previous tag. You know which version of the code was running previously, and that needs to be a fixed tag as well, because if you had a previous tag and you used a bad code, you used two bad codes in successive manner, and you just follow on to the previous bad code, you don't want to do that. You want to fall
yeah.
back to the last known good configuration.
Yeah, but at least having the tags allows you to easily roll back, because that's also one of the things that's hard with on-server deployments. Because let's say you just provision new service with a new Java runtime, and now you can't run your old compiled code against this new runtime. That's not going to be a good day for you. So that's definitely something to be concerned about.
Yeah, I agree.
And then this next question, I actually once again have a slide. It's from the same deck that I was talking about. Is you're putting all of your code in a runtime that you might need to upgrade later if there's a security risk. What are suggestions around updating Docker files reliably? And here we go. This is actually from a talk that I did earlier this year around at DevConf. And basically, I'm a very strong believer in that you should have control over all of the Docker containers and images that you use inside your build pipeline. So if you are using some public cloud, like let's say one of the Ubuntu ones, that's fine. But bring that container into your own image repository, because you want to be able to take that and do things to it and also make sure that it's the same. You don't want that to someday just, oh, by the way, it's a new version of 18.04, and then things start breaking. And then it's up to the reliability around how you do this. Is that, once again, like Docker said, is like be explicit with the version numbers. Inside your Docker files, you can specify exactly what tag even to use from the image to use. So build this nested chain of things. So let's say now what you have is that you want to start fixing a security issue because you've got base containers built on, let's say, Ubuntu as an example. Then you go update that golden base image, give it the new versions, give it a new tag, and then all the subsequent ones below it now reference that new one, because then you've got a controlled rollout, control testing, make sure it's working, make sure it fixes the problem you want, and then only roll it out. But then at the end of the day, from your actual application, you version it, let's say, between version A and version B, whatever scheme you use. Yes, it's got a new base image, but you don't necessarily indicate it inside the actual versioning over there, because that might not be important relative to the application.
Yeah, yeah. And one comment I have here on updating Docker files reliably, or updating anything reliably. My question to you here is, do you want your every update you perform to your environment to be successful? Because that's potentially not going to be the case, right? So the beauty about containers, the cloud, the massive scale of IT we have right now, is that you can try things out as much as you want. So when you wish to upgrade your Docker image to include the latest patches from Ubuntu, right, for example, you change your Docker file with the latest and greatest security updates to cover a security issue, and you try it out. And if it doesn't work, it's easy to roll back, or it's easy to just not deploy that into production. So do not expect perfection from everything you do. That's not how things work. If you're looking to 100% reliably experiment on things, well, you're not going to get far away. So the
Yeah,
important
it's
thing
learn
here,
learn from the failures.
exactly. So that's very important when you do things like this. Is uh, don't be afraid to try things out.
Mm.
Absolutely. Try a completely brand new. Cobus and I did an upgrade on some application we were building on stream, and like, oh, it's built for Python 2. Let's try it in Python 3. And we just changed
Oh
it to
yeah.
Python 3 and it worked. Now, one of the things that we didn't do and that you should do is that you have proper observability in place. So,
Mm.
how do you know that your application is running? Are you monitoring? Are you looking at all the things that your application is doing that this change has
Mm.
potentially broken it, right? So it's very important to plug in into all things there.
And also, just to be clear here, when we talk observability, we don't just say, is the CPU, RAM, hard disk, those kind of
Yeah,
things, are they running, or the API speeds, or is that within tolerances? You need to put in business metrics. What is
yeah,
your application or system doing?
yeah,
And can you keep an eye on that? Because it doesn't help everything is normal and orders aren't going through, because then
exactly.
there's something wrong.
Achieving business outcomes is very important. I think it's
Yes.
more important to a lot of people than your CPU utilization. So,
Oh, yeah. Mm.
so if your application is running higher on CPU but or lower on CPU, like, oh, I saved so much money on compute
Mm.
resources, but it's not performing its business outcome.
Um, You joke. I was in the process of designing a literally a business scaling knob, just a
Okay,
normal that you could turn like this. And
okay,
what it would have had, and I had the code ready, but not the actual hardware yet, was a little
okay,
display saying what's the cost per hour to run, because it was a business that did high volume processing of data.
yeah,
And typically we had an SLA of, I think, 48 hours or something of processing the data, but there might have been scenarios where they could have wanted it to go faster. And I
okay,
wanted to mount that on the wall, but in the business side and saying, listen, details about where we are with our queue and things, you can do it faster. Just turn the knob, and it shows you how much that would cost. But I still want to implement that
that's very cool. That's
because
very
yeah, because you could throw money at it and say, "Listen, our queue is getting too big.
yeah,
We want to do it faster, or we're not going." And then
yeah. I mean, Techie Man, the most important thing about it is feel free to feel free to test out things, feel free to play with things. It's just, I mean, you're not gonna succeed on the first time, and that's perfectly fine. So we
mm,
tend to like always, and I catch myself in this as well. Like, oh, every time I deploy, it needs to be successful. It doesn't. And as long as you have the proper
mm,
guardrails in place, if you have the proper things that can prevent you from running into problems in place, you should be fine. So
mm.
yeah,
But I mean, Ganesh, if you think that's a cool Raspberry Pi
yeah.
project, as part of my office cleanup this weekend, I found my notes from 2012 to 2014 of game ideas of what I was, because I was
Game
convinced I was going to
ideas.
become a game developer at that point. Yeah, there
Wow.
are some very, very fun ones in there that I still want to potentially go look at because they still haven't been built. So,
Okay. Interesting.
but
You should do that. Oh, a memory card, man. Is it a memory card
no, no,
duo?
no, 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 no. Memory stick.
Memory
This is
stick.
a
Sorry,
memory stick Pro.
memory stick Pro, and
Yeah.
memory stick duo. Yeah, is it duo?
Pro Duo, yeah. This
Pro
is
duo. Yeah.
this is a 4 gig one, and the funny one about this is when I saw this the first time. So just can you actually wait? Can you actually see the text there? Let's see.
The light is in the way.
There we go.
Eight,
This is a 250,
256. Yeah.
256 mix. I was convinced this will replace Stiffies one day. We will not need anything other than Stiffies. The CD-ROM thing is a phase. Don't worry. We're going to use Stiffies.
Yeah. Yeah. Stiffies. Well, my first camera that I bought in 2005. It's like a mini DV camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Sony mini DV camera. It uses the same memory stick duo, and I have a same one. It's not blue, it's purple, but it's basically the same 256
Mm.
megabyte ones where you can capture still images from your camera. So
But I mean, just to put in context, how the thought process about this product was like in the middle there, that darker bit is actually a place where you can write on
right.
it, like you could write on this on your Stiffies and other discs back in the day. It's man, it's
But I still wish there was a physical media that would replace optical discs and that we would use physical
mm,
media. I'm a fan of physical media, right? So like I have a plan
yeah.
because I have a collection of old games there, to convert all of those floppy disks into flash drives.
Oh yeah.
I'm just currently looking for a high enough quality supply of relatively cheap flash disks, because if you go on like eBay and Amazon and look for cheap flash disk, you're gonna get those horrible, like the ones with the hinges. It's like it doesn't work. Like half of the time it's just broken.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for some good, good high quality flash drives for archival purposes. So I do have this one. I've tested this one out, and this one seems to be pretty good. It's a SanDisk Cruiser Blades. These ones are like relatively cheap. This is a 64 gigabyte model that cost me like 15 euros. There's the smaller ones which you can get for like 5 euros. So I'm thinking about getting all of these and just backing up all my games from floppy disks to flash drives because I like physical media.
Cool.
There's a comment from Techie Man again.
Mm.
Can you bring it up?
Yep. And then there's a question after that, yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I asked the question is the reason I choose serverless whenever possible, but I know serverless is limited for it. Okay, so we have not touched serverless here. Like serverless is going to be a topic for another day, absolutely. You can have serverless containers, mind you, right? When you say serverless, you most likely mean Lambda functions in this case. Fargate is our serverless containers. Like it's exactly the same thing, but you don't have any infrastructure, right? So
it's no, it's not. It's not. Let me think about this. Under the hood, yes, you can make the statement that they are the same because they both run on Firecracker. As the
why wouldn't? Okay, fight me. Why wouldn't you call Fargate serverless?
No, I didn't say I wouldn't call Fargate serverless because you don't have to worry about the service, but I wouldn't say that they are the same in the sense that they've got fairly different targets.
I'm not saying Fargate alone does. I'm not saying Fargate.
Okay.
I'm saying Fargate is serverless. So
Okay. That's
serverless as well.
That I can. But let's actually dig into that. So Firecracker is actually a micro VM that we open sourced. You can go on GitHub and actually see the source for it. And it means that it's a very, very stripped down virtual machine. And the reason for that is that while containers and Docker is awesome, there are still some security concerns around how isolated it is from the host operating system or not. And virtual machines give you a much better security posture around this. So that's one of the reasons we actually built it, and they spin up like in 125 milliseconds, I think.
Yeah. So it is very fast, and it's like it's a micro VM basically made for containers. It's that faster, and it is very powerful. And this is where we based a lot of our stuff running for Fargate. That's why you get it. Lambda functions are basically running in containers, so it's a weird thing, but yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if we are recycling, because in the back we're still using the same compute as we do for EC2 and other things. It's like code needs to run, and we need to isolate that code so it doesn't mess with the operating system, because otherwise you've got a leaky abstraction and actually can affect other containers and things running next to it. So it's a super relevant concern. And also, Firecracker is Docker API compatible, if I remember, or Container D compatible, so you can just swap it out, I believe.
Yeah. So. It's pretty good. I haven't played with it, to be honest, because I'm not by any means like a container expert, right? There are so many people here who just like live containers, and I mean I wouldn't be able today to talk about containers without Cobus, right? In this extent. But it is basically gives you the ability, and it's open source. I love this. It's open source. You can literally fork this and make it your own if you want. It's all written in Rust, apparently. So there we go. Rust has a use. I'm kidding. Rust is a great language. The Firefox is built on Rust. So, but yeah.
Wow.
It's under Apache 2.0 license. So, yeah.
I mean, that was the other fun discovery I had this weekend is, actually wonder, maybe if I zoom out, let's see quickly. You might see my dirty office now. Let's just see quickly. So if you look there, that entire black block over there is something like 18 or 19 individual hard disks that I still have to work through to check what's on them.
That should be fun. I hope they're all running. I have a couple of them. Yeah. I have a couple of them on behind me, but I think one of them is dead. One of them is a MacBook, iMac the hard disk. So back when iMacs used to come on hard disks. So yeah. But yeah, this is Firecracker. Firecracker is a really cool thing. I'm happy that it's open source. I'm happy that it's open to everybody, and that it can make your container needs that much more faster. Running. I would say running micro VMs more than containers.
I saw a demo once with like, I think 4,000 of these running on a local MacBook. So it's like, it really is lightweight. Yeah.
Interesting. I might actually try to play around with this to run it on my Intel Intel Nook to see if it works at all.
No. It's definitely, it's definitely something fun to play with.
Yeah. Cool. Well, We have like 20 minutes left. Usually what I like to
Hmm.
do is the last, part of the show. If we basically we've talked containers, we haven't went too deep into them, but we talked about our experiences with containers and what we think they are. We hopefully answer some questions from you all. But we can also talk about stuff we did over the weekend and stuff. What did you do, Kobus, that was fun besides just digging through your? I wouldn't call it trash because I'm a hamster myself. So
Oh, these are
digging through
treasures. These were not trash.
digging through your treasures. That's what I want to say.
Hmm.
Uh,
I'm actually trying to think now if I touched my computer this whole weekend. I don't think I did. I had a completely analog weekend. Yeah,
wow.
happens when you've got kids.
Well, I've had a talk yesterday on a Sunday. So
Oh wow.
there was a student conference in Serbia, and I delivered a 45-minute session on serverless and AWS, like the intro level, everything. But I was for the first time translating slides into Serbian, and it was horrible.
Oh.
Like translating the 5 reasons why people choose the cloud, increased agility and reliability and performance and whatnot. Translating that to Serbian
Uh,
is just. I intentionally did that just for comedic effect because it's horrible. But yeah, it was
well,
fun.
it's I. It depends on the language because I know, for example, my first language Afrikaans is not a like a computer technical. Now, yes, they've converted some of the words and terms and things, but it's just like um, it just does not work.
Yeah.
Even if you do it properly, it's just like no, no, this does not sound right.
I mean, we have all the terms, well, most of the terms translated into our language coming from,
Mm.
50 years ago when computers were a thing and people translated those things. But when I talk about them in those terms, I sound like a, university professor in
Oh yeah.
Belgrade, and it sounds horrible. Like I'm doing a podcast every week in Serbian, and I'm doing technical terms on it. And people who listen to it, if there's some people here on stream, but if people some listen to me and listen to it in Serbian, it's like I'm struggling to translate. I couldn't translate a database record. I don't know how to say a database record or a database entry in Serbian. I'm sure there is a translation, but I've personally never used that, especially
Mm.
because I don't live there for like last 10 years, and I don't talk so much IT in the last 10 years in my own native language. So
Yeah,
it is
no,
interesting.
it's
I, I would advise anybody who's interested in a good struggle, especially if your primary language, if your mother language is not English, um, try to do a talk in your own language. Try to translate it for
oh
your
yeah.
audiences. It's a very mental gymnastics, if
Yeah,
anything.
because
So
your brain is literally not wired to do that. I mean, even when I'm
yeah,
doing presentations, I'm like, I wouldn't be able because it's easier for me to follow in English at the moment
yeah,
because I know kind of like things that I've said in the past and how to put them all together again
yeah.
type thing. But yeah,
Geo basically just wrote out now database in in Serbian on chat. It's it's pronounced baza podataka. Literally baza, it's base. So it's base. Podatak is data. That's database. That's fine. I can say database. I can say computers. I can say even the cloud and network and all that stuff. But like database records,
mm,
it will be like more like a database entry, like unos base podataka,
mm,
but it's weird. It's weird to think about those things in that way because
mm.
even when I was living in Serbia, when we were talking about technology and there in my company where I worked at, we were talking it in half English words, right? You would say a database, you would say
Mm.
the cloud, you would say Wi-Fi access points. You wouldn't
Yeah,
say bežične pristupne stanice. Nobody would say that, right? So it's it's really weird.
it's
But
like for in Afrikaans we've got if you talk about a steak, it's called a beeshaas. And if you because Afrikaans is one of the languages you put multiple words together. And if you translate directly, that means uh, cow, rabbit, peas.
wow,
That's the
there you
direct
go.
translation. How do you get from steak to cow, rabbit, peas? You're like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But also, it's very weird
It's
when languages translate the cloud to and for me, cloud is cloud. Cloud is not a stratospheric object. It's the cloud, right? And
ooh,
when I translate cloud into like Serbian into cloud, it sounds weird because I'm not talking about the clouds. I'm talking about the cloud. So yeah,
mm,
when I was living in Dublin, I was living in Ireland, and I went to a doctor's office once, and I just went to a general checkup, and in front of the doctor's office, this old lady gave me like a little clipboard. Can you put your data in so they can enter it in? And one of the things that I had was like occupation. And back then in Dublin, I was working for AWS as a cloud support engineer. And I wrote it down, cloud support engineer. And the lady was like, "What are you doing with the clouds?" And I'm like, "What? What kind of support do they need?" I'm like, oh, okay.
I motivate them when they can't train, okay? It's like, you can do it, little cloud. Come on. You can go big.
I had to explain to the lady that it's not those clouds. No. I'm sure there are engineers for clouds as well, but it's not me.
I've given up all of those kind of things when they ask me, unless it's something that's tax related where they actually want the breakdown. I either go a software developer or marketing. Because that's what you should be putting on now, Darko, remember?
Marketing? Okay, I'm a marketing expert. Oh, man. But I did get questions yesterday on that student conference, like how does one become a developer advocate? And we got those things on Friday as well. And that's a question like I don't have a good answer to. I would say that one of the main requirements for being a developer advocate or a technical evangelist, whatever you like to call us, is being technical and having a lot of empathy. And being vocal.
And also experience, because at the end of the day, our role is to show people how to use it. And I wouldn't trust someone telling me how to use something if they haven't used it before. It's like literally like, think about your car. Would you let someone work on your car that tells you that, oh, no, don't worry, I read all the books, but I've never opened up a car before? I would like, hell no.
Exactly.
And that's what it boils down to. So it's kind of like that chicken and egg. You need experience before you can get into a dev role. At least that's my opinion.
At least 15 years of experience with Kubernetes, that's a requirement, and 25 years of AWS experience you need to be a developer.
Oh, Darko, don't worry. It is, how many days of October? October is 31 day, right? So it's like 12 days. I've got 22 days left, and then I can start chasing you off my lawn. I've already prepared. It's my 0x28 birthday.
Oh, really? 0x28. My God. Now, by the way, speaking of October, everybody here on stream, Kubis and I will, for Halloween, even though Halloween is not a holiday celebrated, at least not in my country or where I
not really.
A bit. It's kind of picked up from America and all that stuff. But even Halloween is not something we celebrate, but it's a spooky day, right? Let's call it a spooky day. So Kubis and I will have a special stream for Halloween. I'm not sure even which day is Halloween. Is it
Saturday?
Saturday.
It's a Saturday.
So on Saturday, it's a Friday. It's a Friday.
It's a Friday.
It's October 31st?
31st, yes. It's 31 days.
It's a Saturday. Okay. So is that Halloween or 30th?
Yes, 31st is Halloween.
Okay.
I don't know when they normally celebrate it, but I mean, it'll be in the evening.
Yeah. So October 31st, when on Halloween, I think that's Halloween, Kubis and I will be doing a special spooky stream on here, right? So please do join us then. We're gonna be sending more information coming up, but it's gonna basically be a spooky stream on the topic of horror stories in IT. So we're gonna be talking about our war stories, our things that we have experienced, and if you have anything that you have experienced or have wish to share with everybody without, of course, mentioning names and companies, do let us know. We would love to talk about your experiences as well.
Yes.
So yes, do send us an email on that one as well.
We actually have a mail address now.
Yeah, we have a mail address. Yeah, we're canceling Halloween, and there you go. So yeah, Halloween this year, most likely kids will not be going door to door because of the COVID situation. So pack your kids in front of a monitor and let two bald people scream at them, talking about upgrading SAN firmware in the middle of the day.
I want to drink your containers.
Let me tag your containers with latest. Yeah, so we're gonna. It's gonna be a cringy show. Join us. It's gonna be we're gonna be joking around and talking about those things. I'm gonna try to put on some spooky lights and kind of make it atmospheric. I have a wife who loves spooky things, so I have a bunch of skeletons in my house, those kind of things. So I'm gonna try. Yeah, Plesk to cPanel migrations. Ooh. I haven't used cPanel like 15 years. Like it's been a.
Oh no, I actually still have something running on there. I need to migrate it.
I have not. I used Plesk, but cPanel. My God, I haven't.
Actually, I just realized that
it's been a long time, but yeah.
Yeah, I know we've finished our main part about talking containers, but the one thing we didn't speak about is using AWS Elastic Beanstalk for containers.
That's a fair point.
Because it's actually the easiest way you can get going with containers, probably on AWS.
Yeah.
You create your code build job. You create one JSON file that needs a specific shape. And then you say, code build, please deploy this to Elastic Beanstalk. And there you go.
Yeah.
Takes you 5 minutes.
Yeah, code build. Actually, Elastic Beanstalk is one of the primary places people run containers on AWS. It's weird enough. Like you can have the multi-container environment on Elastic Beanstalk, and now you can do it in Amazon Linux too, because so far it was Amazon Linux 1 only for some reason. So you can run it now on Amazon Linux 2, and you can run your containers on actual EC2 instances on AWS without having a need for a big old orchestrator. So if you need to run a couple of containers on AWS, it's the best to do it in Elastic Beanstalk.
Although I must say the runtime version numbering in terms of the mode is one of the most unfortunate numbers, because if you put it in mode 1, it means single container. And if you put it in mode 2, it means more than one container. It doesn't mean two containers, because I've had this confusion a couple of times. People are like, why would you increment just indicate the number? No. You just say, is there one or is there more?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's yeah.
Cool. Well, So that's coming up as well. This week, what's happening this week? Is there anything interesting? Okay, I have something to share. If anybody here from the audience is of Czech or Slovak speaking origin, speaks Czech or Slovak, there is a Czech/Slovak awesome week happening from tomorrow. So tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, we have talks on AWS, on the intro to AWS, in those languages. So again, I'm really shooting in the dark here, because I'm not sure how much people here speak that language. But if you're shooting
in the darko.
In the darko, I'm shooting in the darko. So if if you're interested in something like that, that's happening as well this week.
Maybe put up a link for it.
I don't have one, so let me just try to find it 1 sec.
Yeah, quickly.
I think I shared it on LinkedIn a while ago. So, but I'm just looking at my calendar. I just see that that's happening. So, where can I find it? See all activity. LinkedIn is horrible when it comes to these things.
LinkedIn is very good for broadcasting and like stream consumption, because I find it very hard to find old things and things. So literally keep an eye on it as things fly by, and if it makes enough noise, you'll see it. Otherwise, I found that it's too busy the last while. It's
correct. I have the link. Bam. Česia, Slováci.
Here's a fun question for you, Darko. While we're thinking about containers, what's the biggest container you ever deployed?
I think there was one with 8 gigs of RAM it was using. Like it was
no. What I mean, the disk space.
Oh,
as in physical size. Yeah. Oh, well, not physical size. Yeah.
I would say a couple of gigs. I wouldn't go more. Like, I never had to do anything massive, right? So.
Yeah, I actually had one at one company where the image was big enough that we actually pre-built the AMI with the Docker pull command, because that was faster than when the instance came up to pull from ECR. Just because of literally that's just and the cost. It's like because it was massive. It had NumPy and SciPy in there, which are huge packages.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I've never worked with such massive packages before. So, but yeah. Question from Shasta. ISO certification. We have not talked about it, but I'm not. I know that I have actually currently in the talks with a friend of mine who works for a company, and one of their ISO certification problems. He asked me about it. How can he do something on it? So we can look at it, because it's an interesting topic. ISO certification requires to have a very specific set of processes in your company. So maybe we can look at it, and that could be an interesting topic to talk about. How can you cover those things with AWS and certain things. And
also how much fun PCI DSS is.
I have not worked with PCI before, but
let me just take a minute quickly to explain to you. Some of the requirements mean that when you work with encryption schemes, you are not allowed to send any of the information unencrypted over the wire. So let's say you're developing and you need to do a unit test to test that the encryption for the specific new, because there are multiple inscription schemes. And I actually worked on one where there was a bug in the inscription scheme, which was bloody frustrating, because you need to send it encrypted over the wire, but now you need to build a unit test. So what would you expect the easiest way? Well, you could put an HSM in debug mode, which is when you request it, it responds with yes or no's encrypted correctly, but it also responds with this is what it should be encrypted as. So you can get that string, copy and paste it into your unit test to make sure, build it for future proof. Except that's not allowed by PCI compliance. You you are not allowed to get that response directly to your machine. And there was a workaround where we basically put up a network proxy, and you just saw the packet come past, grab the packet, copy that in your test, and boom, you're done. Because it's literally a custom packet that you build up and then have to encrypt by hand otherwise to do it, which is just like, no. But yeah.
Wow. No, I never had to deal with that. I dealt with ISO certification in my previous company, where we had to have some specific, practices and some tooling you have to in place. So when you get audited, that you have all you have to have like account creation requests, like for internal accounts and account deletion requests, and you have to all archive them. And it was like a whole thing. But yeah, Shotstack, we're going to look into this at one point. We cannot say when. We're going to potentially dedicate one episode to it. So
what would be nice is, but I think that definitely requires us to do research, is that I do know of companies that have used infrastructure as code to actually automate that. Because like you're saying, everything is in the code history. They then make sure that the code history is always backed up and available. And you can see this is exactly how all changes rolled out. So there's some very interesting things you can do around that.
Yeah, exactly. We will have to research again. I'm not by no means an expert. You do not quote us for ISO certification best practices, or this is what these guys do. Like, I've listened to two bald guys on the internet, and they tell me I'm ISO certified. No, but we're gonna definitely try to research it a bit. It could be a fun talk. 2027 double one. That's the one I've had to deal with. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, wrong screen. I just want to pull up something here quickly, just for those interested in the. I have to remember. Give me a second. Art. I think it's artifacts, if I remember correctly. No. It's the certifications that you can actually pull the certificates now directly. There we are.
You mean the AWS artifact thing? How's it called? Not the
artifacts of some kind, yeah. But I mean, basically, let me actually pop this on screen, because this is also useful already. That screen share, take away this little box. So we can look at under Amazon, AWS.amazon.com/compliance. We can share that with you. You can actually see the list of different services that have got specific certifications on them, ISO certifications. You can see over here the list of specific ISO ones, etc. And I think if you go one level up, you can actually download some of the certificates, like for our, the actual data centers, because how it works is that you can utilize the fact that AWS, each availability zone is certified with specific things. You can take that and say, listen, my software runs on this, therefore my software certification plus this, here's the package. So definitely look at that.
I've sent the link right now in chat. It's artifact. It's aws.amazon.com/artifact is basically the self-service portal for compliance reports. So this is where you get all the things. If an auditor comes to you and like, I need a compliance report on your data center, and you're running in AWS, this is how you can do it. And if your audit report comes in, auditor comes in, we need to access the data center. No. So yeah, just point them to this thing. This should answer most questions. There have been a couple of customers that have been really asking to get into data centers, but still, it's not a possibility. Like, no, it doesn't happen. We don't know where the data centers are, right? So,
but I mean, never mind that we don't know. Even if we knew where they were, we physically are not allowed in there. It's like literally like, because we believe in, if you don't have reason to be there, you don't get access. Nobody's got full access to all the services. You always have just a subset. We don't have super admins.
Yeah, exactly. I think also like back in Dublin, I knew of a few folks that worked in DCO, and data center operations, but they would not even tell me, they wouldn't tell me where the data centers are, because they knew. And like some taxi drivers also knew where to take them and those kind of things. But it was even internally, we cannot access that information. So it's very but I mean, guarded.
Basically, it boils down to that we don't necessarily view it as a super secret, but we do view it as there's no customer benefit in knowing that. I mean, why does it help you to know where the physical building is? There's zero value to you. So yeah.
But cool. So with that bombshell, I guess it's almost on the half hour. Halloween, right?
Indeed, Halloween dad jokes. I'm getting ready. Yeah, I'm getting ready. I want to make sure there has to be a good one here. This is why I pull this up. So let's see quickly.
What did the horse get go as
What
a
is good to see his
nightmare?
old haunts. Oh, I'm gonna have to search these. This will be the next 10 minutes at
Yeah.
least. I need to find something good here.
Oh man. Okay, so cool. Everybody, thank you very much for joining. It has been fun. I hope you enjoyed our little discussion on the containers. I hope you also enjoyed the side banter, and thank you for all the
Mm-hmm.
questions. We will be seeing you again this Thursday, or actually this Wednesday for EMEA office hours. We have EMEA office hours coming up this Wednesday. I'm not on that one, I think. I think somebody else. Hey, wow, bye, Ganesh. How many kids do you have? Jesus. um,
Oh.
so, I'm not going to be on this Wednesday's EMEA. EMEA
I don't
Ask
think
Me
I'm
Anything.
either.
But this Thursday, Kubus and I have our Africa office hours. So if you want to join
Mm-hmm.
there, you need to show your African passport to join. That's one thing. Of course you don't. And and yeah. There you go, a bunch of African passports, right? You need to have at least three
Mm-hmm.
to join the stream. And on this Friday, we're going to be continuing with our bean streaming. We don't know the topic yet for this Friday, but we're going to let you know as it comes along. So
Mm.
thank you all. Thank you, Kubus. And
Yes, pleasure.
I wish you all a lovely rest of the week. Don't work too hard. It's almost
Survive
the end of the
Monday.
year. Survive Monday. Have a lot of coffee, and well, it's lunchtime, so grab some lunch.
Mm-hmm.